Okay, very good. Let me just, there is also the transcription here, but I'm turning it off now. And let me just, I think it's better if I fade the light a little bit here, otherwise you don't see the screen. Let's see, this is too much. Okay, this is much better. And let me share my screen so I can start with something meaningful. Good. And just 1 second here. Okay, this is the front page of my website. Okay, first of all, a brief introduction to myself. But before introducing myself, let me give you just an overview of how I will teach today. Today we have 3 hours, and the timetable is 3 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Thursday. You have the rooms, you should know everything. And it's a timetable that is a bit condensed, that should allow us to close our lectures by the end of April. Maybe that if there is some delay, if there is something unexpected, that we go a little bit into May. And I think this is also convenient for you, and in order to condense a little bit the lectures. And in order to make it a little bit easier, I am planning on Monday to teach from 9:15 to 10:45, then make a small break, 15 minutes, and then teach again from 11 to 11:45. So I'm not lecturing 3 hours in a row, but also in order to make it a little bit shorter, what I am proposing is to make only one break after 2 hours of lecturing, after 1 hour and a half. If this is something that is too demanding for you, just let me know. If you want a break every hour, I can do that. It's no problem for me. If I don't hear anything from you, I will teach as I said. On Thursday, I will teach continuously from 9:15 to 10:45. Again, if it is too demanding and you want a break, also on Thursday after 1 hour, I have no problem whatsoever. I'm just trying to meet your preference, because in the past students told me that they prefer to stop 1 quarter in advance, because so they have time to change the room, to take a break before the next lecture. But again, I am completely flexible and willing to adapt to your needs. So if you have any problem, or any wish, you can contact me also individually. It's no problem. Okay. Now, a brief introduction, as I said, to myself. You know my name, Alberto Montanari, you know my email. And if you need to contact me, the best solution is to use the email, not the chat of Teams. The chat of Teams is fine. I'm trying to make an effort to look at it, but the email, I'm continuously checking it. So I remember that now I have to switch off my phone. And so if you send an email, it's the quickest way. And then you can use the chat of Teams. Usually I reserve the chat of Teams for exchange of information. Like sometimes I see a nice video and I post the link on the chat and I say, students, this is interesting. If you want, you can take a look at it. And also students sometimes send me information on the chat of Teams. They say something like, I found this book is very interesting. What do you think? And for these questions, which do not require a urgent reply or an immediate reply, the chat of Teams is perfect. But again, if you have something urgent or something that needs a quick reply, like a deadline for the thesis in the future, maybe, then it's better to use the email. My email, you know it, but it's shown here. You see, alberto.montanari above there. In my website, you open my website and you find it. My website, it's what you can see on the screen. And the address is www.albertomontanari without any space.it. So you can reach also my website on from the uni website. because if in the uni website, I have my personal website, which is this one, sorry, accept all the cookies, which is this one, and this is the official website. But for exchanging information with the students, making available tutorials, I prefer to use my website. What is the reason? Because it's more flexible. The uni website has some security requirements, so it's a bit rigid. I cannot put there everything. Of course, I can put everything in the Virtuale website, which is the website of Unibo for exchanging the tutorial documents with the students. This is flexible indeed, but it has another shortcoming, which is the fact that it's not accessible to everyone. It's accessible only to enrolled students. And this is something that I don't like very much, because you know that today there is a wave towards open science, open education, open research, which I'm very passionate of. So I think it's a very good wave. So I prefer that my material is available to everybody, to the entire world. And this is why I use my website. Also, I use it because I am passionate about web publishing and website making. Okay, but this is really a side reason. And I prefer to use my website because I think it's more convenient for you. Okay, and so again, www.albertomontanari.it. Good. Before looking at my website, let me just give you a short overview of what I'm doing. I am, of course, a university professor, and my duties include teaching and research. And also, there are two more duties. In the university, we say that we have 4 legs. And the 4 legs are teaching, research, consultancy, and administration. So consultancy is the service that you provide to the public or to administrators, policymakers, usually public bodies, if they need some advice that has a scientific relevance. So they need an advice that is not merely technical. Is technical with some need for some innovation, scientific relevance. It's usual practice in Italy, but also in other countries, to refer to the academia or to research institutions, because when you want research, of course, you refer to the bodies that make research. And so in this way, they ask for consultancy. Usually they pay something, not too much really, because it's also a mission of the university to offer consultancy, and the university identifies an expert who is responsible, a professor who is responsible for the consultancy activity. So this is something that we are also asked to take care of. And then there is administration, because of course university requires administration, and as you know, the main feature of the university is that it's administered by professors. At the beginning in the history, when the University of Bologna, which you know, it is supposed to be the oldest in the world, not really sure, but it's supposed to be the oldest. But what does it mean, the oldest university? It means that it is the oldest institution that is today classified as a university. And what does it mean, classified? Because there are several educational institutions. In the history, there were several ones. The university is defined as an institution that is independent from any religion. It's a laic institution. And at the beginning, it was founded as an institution governed by students. So the first rector of the University of Bologna was actually a student, and also I think a number of rectors since the foundation, because the idea was that the students got together and looked for education. And later on, it changed a little bit, not really little, it changed a lot, because the rule was that the university, and is currently today in place, is governed by professors with the cooperation of the students. There was a period where only professors governed it. Now it's a mix. But of course, the responsibility is the chief is the rector, who is a professor. So this implies that professors need to give a contribution to administration. This is a contribution that is really not strictly required. There are professors that don't contribute to administration and consultancy, but still it is something that sometimes comes. And it's a nice experience. It's very demanding. It may be interesting, not always. And currently, I'm not involved in any administrative experience. I was actually for 6 years head of the department. I just stepped down in May 2021, and now it's fine for me. I mean, it was enough. And so currently, I am involved in teaching, research, and consultancy. I would say that my main activities are teaching and research. I like very much both of them, and my time is, I would say, shared, maybe a little bit more on research. Not too much on consultancy, and important to say, I'm not doing any professional activity. Professors are allowed to make professional activities as private individuals. And this is quite usual in engineering, which is fine because, I mean, professional activities also give some useful information to the teacher to teach at the audience. Those who choose to make professional activities get a reduced salary and a reduced workload. I'm not doing anything of that because I concentrate on research as the parallel activity to teaching, which is, I think, a useful information because it allows you to understand what I can give to you. I am an expert, I hope, I am an expert on research. I'm not an expert on professional activities. So usually I tell students, look, I can't tell you how to organize construction works because I don't have, or let me say, I have a very limited experience on that. At the beginning of my career, I did something, but very limited. I'm working full-time as a professor, and what I can give to you is up-to-date information on research. And this is, I think, it is useful for you to know. And it may be a plus for some reasons. It is a limitation for other reasons. And I give you this advice, try to identify what is the best information that your professors can give to you, because actually the most you can get from your teachers and the better your education is, of course. And then it is important to know what you can get. So if you have professors, for sure you have, that are doing professional activities, try to get information on professional activities. They may also have better connections with respect to me, with the marketplace, the job market. So I think this is really something interesting that you try to understand what professors can give to you. So now I am busy with teaching and research, as I said, research on what? On water resources and water-related hazards. This is, broadly speaking, my activity, my research activity, and my expertise. In a word, my expertise is hydrology. What is hydrology? It's the science that studies the water cycle. But I am an engineer. I am a civil engineer. My background is civil engineering. I took a PhD in hydraulic engineering, which means that I'm what you can define as an applied researcher. And I think this is also interesting to know, meaning that I am supposed to be expert also on solutions, not only on research, but also on technical transfer of knowledge, or let's say transfer of technical knowledge, okay? And as I said, my field is hydrology then, which means hydrology is the science that studies water resources and studies, as I said, water-related hazards, in particular floods and droughts. I have a long experience on floods. My experience on droughts is more recent, but I think it is something that I consider very interesting. They are much more complicated to study, droughts, with respect to floods. And then, from a research point of view, I think it is really something very interesting. And the droughts are also related to groundwater. I was born as a surface water expert, and now I am getting into groundwater for the very reason that I need also to study droughts and water resources management in details. Given that I am an hydrologist, I was forced already 20 years ago to learn something about climate change and sustainability. And I say I was forced because it was a need at that time, really a need, because it emerged the needs to in a way to cope with the current level of development, which is really very, very accelerated, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, you know that it gives some problems related to sustainability. So as I said, I was forced to get into climate change, but I'm not a climate scientist, of course. I am not an atmospheric scientist. I'm not a glaciologist. I am an hydrologist, and I am a Mediterranean hydrologist. So I cannot say that I am a climate scientist. Still, I needed to get deeper into climate change from the perspective of engineering. And climate change is a very broad topic. It's very interdisciplinary. You can look at climate change from the perspective of climate science. You can look at climate change from the perspective of hydrology and from the perspective of economy, social sciences, and finally, engineering. So this is what I can offer to you. I think I have a good expertise on climate change adaptation, which is in the domain of engineering. I'm not an expert on climate change mitigation, so I cannot speak for politics or strategies for reducing CO2 emissions, but I can speak for how to adapt to climate change, which is an open issue. It is really an open issue, and I will discuss with you about that. So we know that climate change is a problem, but we don't know the solutions, and especially the solutions related to engineering. It's not geoengineering. I'm talking about engineering. Geoengineering is engineering solution for reducing the concentration of CO2. I'm talking about engineering, which is solutions to adapt, in particular, water resources management to climate change. And this is my level of expertise. As I said, my background is civil engineering. I am from a small city that is close by. It's Reggio Emilia. I'm still residing there. Reggio Emilia is about 60 kilometers. I'm still staying there, 60 kilometers from Bologna, let's say northwest, along the Emilia Street. I'm commuting by train, so this is to say that sometimes it may happen, usually it doesn't happen, but it may happen that I am late. If I am late, just wait for me, please. And because if I have problems, I will let you know. And how I will let you know? By writing on the chat of Teams and writing on Virtuale. I will pass later to Virtuale and will show you how I can send announcements. Let me see if, can you please close the door a little bit? Yes, thank you. Because this is probably a break time. I studied in Parma, close to Reggio Emilia, and then I went to Milan to take my PhD. During the PhD, I spent 5 months in the United States, but just as a visiting student, not as a researcher there. And then I came back and I found a position as assistant professor here in Bologna in 1998. So it's in the past 24 years I have been working here. And I am now full professor since 2015. And if you are curious about what I'm doing on research, I suggest you that you go on my website. It is divided in 2 columns. And if you look at the right one, it's research, and the left one is teaching activities. So my research activity is described here. And if you are curious, you can look there. If you are curious, I have also a Twitter account here. And I'm not on Facebook, but I am on Twitter. And on Twitter, I usually post only research, only research communications. I'm not using Twitter for chatting with my friends or for any other thing but research. Okay, if you're curious. This is my Twitter page. I have also a YouTube account because I started, just 1 second. I started in 2012 to put online all of my lectures I was a pioneer at that time. Now it's normal, but okay, not on YouTube actually, but it's normal to put to make available videos of the lectures today. Actually, when I started in 2012, I think at the University of Bologna I was the only one, because I had already the wish to make everything open. And so if you look at my playlists, there are lectures from I think 2012. And if you look at the number of subscribers, it's not high for the standard of YouTube, but it's still quite high because they are only students. They accumulated also over the years. And here you have the lectures of sustainable design of water resource system. They are not visible because it's still empty, but it will appear tomorrow when I will upload the videos of today. On YouTube, I only post videos related to teaching, great majority, something related to research. Good, let's go back to the website. And if you go on the column of teaching, the first link is our course, Sustainable Design of Water Resource Systems. If you click there, you get to the page describing the course, which is basically reporting what I'm saying now. So you don't, as I said, you don't need to take notes. Of course, it is more condensed, but you get any information that you need. And first of all, lectures, they are delivered in physical presence, but also in streaming. As you know, because the majority of students is attending from a remote location. The lectures are recorded and made available on, as I said, on YouTube. And there is here the link to the playlist. Just 1 second, I go back. Okay, here you see videos. Let me just magnify. Videos of the lectures, and there is a link, playlist. If you click there, you get again on YouTube on the playlist, which is empty, okay, now. But I will upload the videos here. Usually I upload with a delay of at most 1 day, but please be patient a little bit. Sometimes I am busy, so sometimes I get emails from students after 1 hour. Where is the video? Be patient a little bit, okay? And but usually within 1 day I can upload everything. The lectures are also uploaded here. Let me now go to Virtuale because I think it is useful. So virtuale.unibo.it, if you look at the address bar, you see where I am going. Let me switch to English. This is also the screen that you see. Let me log in. My courses, sustainable design, where is? Here it is. Let me click here. No, this is the one of last year. No, it was the correct one, sorry. Yeah, 21, 22, yes. Let me click there. Okay, very good. Now, here you can find a copy of all the lectures. And let me postpone this, okay, because this is the discussion of the tutorial documents. What is important to say about Virtuale is that you see in the right column there is the Panopto format, the Panopto, sorry, window. I will put also the videos there of the lectures. It will be just a copy of what is posted on YouTube. From here, only students can have access, okay? It is probably better for a student to go through this way because there is no advertisements. You know that YouTube started 1 year ago to put sometimes advertisements. which, okay, that's fine, but if you can avoid it, probably it's better. But actually, I don't see a big difference. And second thing I would like to say on Virtuale, there are announcements here. The first link here, of course, there are no announcements. If I put an announcement there and you are subscribed to Virtuale, then you will get an email. So this is the other tool I will use to let you know if I have any problem the last day, okay, or the last minute. I will send a message here and on the chat of Teams. If you don't get any news from me and you see that I am a bit late, just wait for me. Good. Second thing, instead, if I have some problems that I know in advance, like I cannot teach next Monday, for instance, I will let you know with 1 week of 1 week in advance. Okay, but if I get a last minute problem, I will use this announcement. Okay, good. Let's go back to the page of the course. And 1 second, I go back at the beginning. As I said, the lecture will be then available also for offline reviewing. And about the exams, I will specify better later. But what I want to say for the lectures, there is no any obligation to attend in presence. Still, I just want that you know that I am very appreciating the fact that we are back in the room in physical presence, because this gives to me a much better feeling of what is of our relationship. I have a much better feeling of our relationship. If the relationship is going well, I can get I can perceive from your eyes and from your, let's say, reaction if my lecture is interesting rather than not, because it may happen that, you know, it depends on the audience. It may happen that sometimes I adapt also to the audience. When I'm teaching online, really it's much more difficult. So I really appreciate if you come in physical presence, but absolutely it's not a requirement. You can get the 30 plus loud, even if I never saw you in both remote lecturing and remote attendance and physical attendance. It's not a problem. Your assessment, the assessment of your education preparation is completely independent of your attendance, both remotely and physically. And but again, I want to let you know that I'm really pleased to have a physical interaction, because this makes my lecturing much more productive. Very good. In order to make lecturing much more productive, I also try to stimulate interactive learning. And here there are some ideas that I tried during the years. And in particular, besides the videos of the lectures, which you may say today, this is not really anything new, but it was some years ago, so I prefer to keep it there in order to emphasize that it is indeed something that I think it is useful also to stimulate interaction. Another experience that was very profitable in the past was to invite the students to deliver short presentations. And this works in this way. If you are available to give a short presentation, either remotely or in physical presence, then you should prepare a PowerPoint on something that you think it is interesting for this course, which must be different from what I'm lecturing, because it's not intended to substitute the lectures. It is intended to give additional information. Typically, students present a case study, like where I live, I have the problem of a levee that, a river that flooded in the past, what were the reasons for flooding, what people did to mitigate the damage and to avoid that the event is repeated in the future. And this is very nice. Usually I ask students to be very short, like 5-8 minutes, which means 5-8 slides. And I ask that the presentation is technical, not just an illustration of what happened. And technical means that, as I said, it's nice to know the solutions that were devised. It's nice to know what was wrong from a technical point of view, what worked well from a technical point of view. And this is interesting, as I said, because usually after the presentation, there is a discussion. Students ask questions. It is useful for two reasons. First, it gives to you an experience of presenting, because presenting is not easy. Even to your friends, when you have to come here and go to the PC and look at the screen, it's not easy. So it's a useful experience, because when you will look for a job, you will have to go under an interview, which is much more difficult with respect to presenting to your friends. So it's a nice experience. Also, when you will have to present your thesis. First thing. Second thing, I'll explain to you later, I will evaluate not only your preparation, but also your ability to speak, by taking into account that most of us are not native speakers, probably all of us, and therefore it's not easy to speak in English. Also for me, it's not easy. But besides the problem given by the language, also the students should make an effort to gain that particular ability, which is called ability to deliver presentations. And this is part of my evaluation. It is, of course, correlated with your level of preparation. If you are prepared, you have more chances to deliver a good presentation. But to some extent is also independent. There are students that are not prepared at all, so they don't really have a good knowledge of the topic, but they are very good in presenting. Of course, they don't get a good mark, because preparation is of course, an essential requirement. On the other hand, they can a little bit compensate, because the ability to present is really important. And it's important also for managers, for administrators, for politicians. You see clearly from the TV and from the social media how important it is to be able to keep relationships, useful and productive, efficient relationships. So the moral of the story is that if you deliver a short presentation and the presentation is successful, I can take into account it in my final evaluation. The exam may be shorter, or let's say that a good performance is always kept into my memory. Other exercises that I will propose to you are self-evaluations through Virtuale. I have the opportunity to propose to prepare quizzes, for instance, a quiz to check your preparation. And also I will probably ask you to compile an anonymous form of evaluation of the teacher, an interim form. You know that at the end of the course, you will have the opportunity to compile a form to express your opinion on me, on my teaching, and on this course, on the content of the course, etc. I will discuss later on this. But still, I think it is useful for me to know your opinion if you're something that it's not really what you were expecting from me. It's useful for me because I can, in a way, adjust. For instance, one thing that students often tell me is that I speak too fast. Of course, don't look at today. Today I'm just chatting. We're just having a conversation. But when I will lecture technically, I will try to slow down. But still, this is a criticism that I get sometimes from students. On the other hand, if I slow down too much, some students complain that I am too slow, and therefore they don't get what they are expecting. So I try to reach a compromise. I try to keep always the audience in a way unified. I don't want to forget anybody. And on the other hand, I don't want to disappoint students who maybe have the opportunity and the expectation to get the most from your experience. Okay, now, tutorial documents. I have a list of web pages And let me open just one, okay, to give you an idea. I am giving my tutorial documents in the form of web pages. Why? And not, why not a PDF, for instance? Because the web pages allow me to include links, and the web pages allow me to make updates. I am really convinced that today, when I teach, it is extremely important to make updates because, as I said, science is progressing very quickly, and I don't think it would be useful to study by using a book that was printed 20 years ago. And this is why I don't use a book, because in water resources management, I don't have any book to suggest you that is up to date. I don't. And if you look at the books, there are very nice books, very nice readings, but the methods they suggest are a bit outdated. So I realized that I need to make frequent changes. You may say a PDF can be easily changed. Yes, but a web page is much easier. And because a PDF needs to be printed out, and also a PDF, there is the problem that you have the old versions and students may exchange the old versions. The old versions remain on the web. And this, I saw it's a bit of a problem. And therefore, I prefer to use the web pages. If you really want a PDF, print them out. It's very easy, okay? And they are easy to be printed out. Now, it's a bit difficult to read them on the phone. I am updating my website, but it will be updated not soon, probably during next summer, in order to make it mobile friendly. Now, it's not really mobile friendly. So it's better to read them on the PC or the tablet. But let me open a web page just to give you an idea. So just by chance, this is an example. And in the web pages, there are figures. There is everything that you need to take your exam. What do I mean? The questions I am asking at the exam are questions that you can find here. So the answers can be found here. So you don't need anything more to take your exam. And they may have some mistakes. They may suffer from some mistakes, which means spelling errors or something that it's not, may look not correct. If you see anything related to that, please send me an email, like there is a spelling error, there is a mistake. There shouldn't be some conceptual mistakes because these are web pages that have been used already for quite a few years. But still, if you see something that is not clear, for instance, like I don't understand this sentence, I'm not a native speaker, as you know, so my English is not perfect by far. When you read here, it's not perfect. So just let me know, because the nice thing of these web pages is that they come from a cooperation with the students. And sometimes students tell me, I would like to know some more related to that, and then I expand. I may be a bit slow, but if you have any contribution to give, just let me know. Sometimes in the bottom of the web page, let's see if there is here, you can find a PowerPoint. Yeah, like here, download the PowerPoint presentation of this lecture. Let me just click on it, and it should, let me see if it is quick. Yeah, okay, it's here, sorry. Here is the PowerPoint. It's compressed, but if I click on the PowerPoint, I get it. And what is this PowerPoint? It's just a brief resume. And when the PowerPoint is available, typically I use it for teaching. So I put it on the screen and I use it. My suggestion for you is not to use it for studying. Just look at the web page. The web page is conceived for that purpose. Okay? PowerPoint is useful for me to teach because if I don't have the PowerPoint, what I'm doing is to put on the screen the web page, which it's not really the best. For teaching, this is not really the best. Even if I I increase the font, and even if I concentrate on the central part, still it's not easy to read on the screen something like this. And so when I have the PowerPoint available, I use it. But sometimes you will see myself putting on the screen this and the web page. In this case, I will use the web page especially for the figures and for showing the formulas. You don't have to read everything is on the screen when I use the web pages. You just have to follow me, and when I draw your attention on the screen, just follow me, okay? And I try to use the PowerPoint the most of the time, but sometimes I find it more productive to use the web page because I can follow the links. Now, as I said, on the web page, you find everything you need to prepare the exam. But your job in a university program is not to take exam. Your job is to learn. Okay, this is a naive statement that I am saying now. But just keep in mind that I think that it would be a mistake if you just focused on taking exams, because it would be not really efficient for your future. Okay, the exam is just a step. It's not the final target. Your final target is to get at the end of the university program and have something to spend in the job market. This is your final target. And maybe also some knowledge for your passion. But indeed, the first target, the first priority is to be competitive on the job market. So just keep it in mind. It's not just, and the two things are not correlated. So you can get the max mark at the end of your university program, but you still could not be competitive on the job market. In the job market, they don't look at the max mark. They look at a person that is presenting well, a person that gives the feeling that this person is a good worker, is a person with whom it's a pleasure to work with, and an efficient person, etc. So, this premise to say that my web pages contain links. The links are just some suggestions that you may get to expand your knowledge. The links are not compulsory. The links are something more. Okay? It's, for instance, here. First link here, estimation of water resources. If I click there, a new window opens and gives brings to the Wikipedia page of water resources. So if you don't understand something and you see a link, click there. Or if you've seen something interesting and you want to know some more and there is a link, click there. This is just my suggestion. Most of the links bring to Wikipedia, Wikipedia in English. I think Wikipedia in English is a very good reference. It's free. Of course, there are some limitations, but which I think you know well. Sometimes it's not reliable, but when it's not reliable, usually you see a note there. And sometimes maybe not fully independent, because Wikipedia is managed by the community. The community has a large size and therefore has a high chance to be independent. On the other hand, sometimes you can find, especially in the regional languages, like if I look at Wikipedia in Italian, sometimes I see biases, sometimes also in English. So you don't have to trust everything is there, I mean, a truth sculpted in the rock. You just have to be critical with everything you read, but I think Wikipedia is a good reference. Most of my links bring there. So just keep in mind that unless I say differently, like take this link, follow it because it's important. Unless I say this, the links are just something that is maybe interesting to you. For instance, here there is a link to FAO. Some links may be broken. If you see something that is broken, please let me know. I try to check every year. This is, for instance, the FAO, which is an important organization. We will discuss the features. And so sometimes, as I said, the links give you interesting information. Okay, now let me go back to the... I was forgetting to say. These web pages, as I said, it's the body of the knowledge of my course. So you can find a copy of the same web pages on Virtuale. If you go into Virtuale, you will see some, the links bring back precisely to my web pages. And I think that there is a perfect mirroring. I hope so. Virtuale gives something more. I say I hope so because sometimes I put new lectures here, and sometimes I forget to put them on Virtuale. So if you see that there are discrepancies, just let me know. Virtuale gives some more, like the announcements, like the self-evaluation tools. So just have a look on Virtuale, and what is there, you can get an anticipation of the course. Let me go back to the list of the lectures. The list is already completed, but please take into account that they may change depending on how we get along together. And I may be quicker, I may be slower than what I expected. I may make changes also depending on the input from the students. But this is the list of my lectures. And here there is a list of tutorial web pages for the practical exercises, because this is something that I wanted to tell you. I will take some hours, about 8, to dedicate to exercises on the PC by using open source software. For instance, you see here estimation of the flow duration curve. Some of you already know what is a flow duration curve, some others not. And I think they are nice exercises. So I will tell you in advance, we will dedicate some time to them. And when we do practical exercises, the easiest way to make them is if you bring a tablet or a PC. Better a PC than a tablet. But because otherwise, if I have to book a computer room, it's a problem. And it's a problem to find the hours when we have the lectures. It's very easy if you bring your PC, we can make the exercises together. Otherwise, you can just look at me while I'm completing the exercise, but I suggest that we make it interactive. Why I'm doing this? Okay, the reason may be obvious because we are studying engineering and therefore we have also to learn how to make things in practice. Fine. But there is a second reason. The second reason is that to be competitive on the job market, you need to be able to do with the PC whatever is possible. So really, this is an added value for you. And when I say whatever is possible, I'm meaning much more than Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. These are, of course, the basis. Keep in mind that if you cannot use PowerPoint well, it's difficult to be competitive. But you must be able to do more than that. And what is more? More depends on what is your target on the job market. But if you want to target a private company that is dealing with, I don't know, for instance, controlling systems, so using automatic computation for designing structures or for managing structures, control systems, I think that you need to know some additional software besides Excel, and you need to know how to make algorithms, how to make programs. You need to know what are the open source opportunities, not only MATLAB, but something that is freely available, because this is much appreciated today in the job market. And this is something that you need to learn now, not later, because when you are busy with your job, it's becoming really tough then to integrate your working activity with learning activities. So this is something that you will be an engineer, and an engineer must really be able to take a PC and say, I know this. I know this guy, I know what I can do. I know what is the type of PC that can be used for doing this. I need what kind of PC. I know what kind of PC I need if I need to make some parallel computation, some very intensive computation. I know what I can do with a tablet. I know what is the added value of a personal computer with respect to a tablet. I know what is the added value of a tablet with respect to a personal computer. This is extremely important, and in a job interview, it is very likely that somebody asks you, what can you do with the PC? Like, what are the programs that you know? Do you know AutoCAD? Do you know a class, for saying a name that it's related to my discipline and probably you don't know? So it's extremely important that we dedicate during this degree program time to work with the PC. And it may look something difficult. My target is to convince you that it's not difficult at all. It's very easy. Using open software, it's very easy. You just need to get into this feeling. You just need to get the perception of how this environment is working. Okay, so here there is the list of the exercises. Maybe that we don't do all of them, but still, if you want to expand, there is the information that you need here. Okay, now you have the link here for the virtual classroom. The virtual classroom will be on Teams, the same link for the full duration of the course. And here you have the calendar of the lectures, the videos, the playlist, we already discussed about this. This is the calendar of the lectures, and you see that actually I was a bit optimist. I said that we will end by the end of April, but now I realize that this was valid last year, not this year, because the Easter break is combining in a way that you see that there are some gaps. So I am planning to close on May 16, maybe a little bit earlier, because it's possible in the future to recover some of the hours if we would like to. As I said, any change will be communicated to you later on. So I have to change this. You see here, we'll terminate around the end of April. This was valid last year, but it's not valid this year. I'm looking at the calendar now. When I prepare this page, I copy from the last year. So if you see something that is wrong here, just let me know, please. I don't think there are big mistakes, but now let me talk a little bit about the exam, because I think it is important to clarify already now how the exam takes place. As I said, the exam is not our priority, but still we have to pass it, and possibly to pass it with a good mark, and not possibly, hopefully, okay? And therefore, it is still important that I am very clear on how the exam is structured. So what I will do is a quiz plus a short oral session. The quiz is a news in this course. It's an innovation. Up to last year, I did only an oral examination. Why did I change? I changed it because, first of all, I realized that the quiz is a good opportunity for me and for the students. Second, with the remote exam, the oral was really demanding for both me and the students, because I had to, first of all, I make the exam myself alone with possibly another colleague listening or watching, but I am making the exam myself, and I want to make the exam for all the students myself for ensuring a coherence in my evaluation. And therefore, with many students, it became a little bit demanding, and sometimes I couldn't respect the schedule. I needed to make the exam over 2 days instead of just one, and this was creating some problems with the students. So I thought that it was more efficient to make a quiz, which is like a written examination, and then make a short oral examination. How the quiz is structured: it's 30 questions with close answer, and no penalty. And the duration is 30 minutes. So you get 30 questions. I will give you an example during the lectures of a quiz. Currently it's not there on Virtuale, but I will put an example. A shorter one, like 10, 15 questions. So you get a glance of what is the quiz about. And the exam, as I said, the quiz, as I said, will have no penalty, which means that in any case, if you don't answer a question, if you make mistakes, there is no penalty. 30 questions with 1 mark per question means that if one makes the quiz everything correct, the mark is 30, which is the same mark as for the examination, as you know. But you don't have to assume that for getting 30, you need to be correct in all the questions. Actually, this doesn't happen. In my experience with the quizzes, it happened sometimes that a student was able to give 30 correct answers, but it was very rare. But usually the mark that I give to the quiz may be 30, even if the correct answers are 27. It depends, because I make a statistics also on the students. And then I give a mark, a proposed mark for the quiz. And then there is the oral part. Usually it's very short. Usually it is meant to be an assessment of your capability to present, to deliver presentations. And it may be skipped if you deliver the presentation during the year in the room. And the oral part may increase the mark with respect to the quiz, may decrease it. It happened to me that a student got 30 in the quiz and then 21 as final mark because the oral part was really a disaster. So just to give you an information. When you will have the opportunity to take the exam, you will have the opportunity to take 3 times the exam before summer. I need to wait for the end of the lectures before fixing an exam. I think the lectures are ending on June 6th this year. It means that I will fix an exam the same day or a day later with respect to the end of the lectures. And then after 15 days, there will be another appeal, as we say in Italian, and then another one after 1 month. So before the end of July, you will have 3 opportunities. And you can take the exam how many times you want if you decline. I mean, it may happen that you take the first one, I propose 25, and you say, no, sorry, I'm not happy with this, and then you take the next one. Just keep in mind that if the number of students is enough, I make the quiz. If the student is alone, I don't make the quiz, because it's not worth doing that. And what is the minimum number of students to make the quiz? I would say 3. If the students are more than 3, I can do it. And this usually, it's not the case before summer. In these 3 exams, you will be more than 3. But it may happen because there are other exams later on. It may happen that later on, I get only 1 student. And in this case, I don't make the quiz. In this case, it's only an oral examination, which is longer. It's about 20 minutes, only oral questions. Everything is clear?
I didn't get what you mean by close answer. You mean the format is multiple choice question or short answer?
Yeah, the question is for who is attending remotely. What do I mean with close answer? Close answer is multiple answers questions. It's not written, you don't have to write anything, okay? An example may be like, it's difficult to give an example because we didn't start the course, but what day of the week is today? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, and only one is correct, okay? And so this is the plan. And in September, I will make another exam. I will make another exam in December and another one in January. So in total, you have at least 6 opportunities to take the exam. After that, keep in mind that I am always available to students to fix an exam In principle, I am invited by the university to not to make an exam during the lecture time, but I can make exceptions, especially if it's for a very small number of students. So this is to say that if you need, after January 2023, to take the exam, like in March 2023, I can do that. I prefer not to schedule any additional date in the first part, in the first session of exams. So before summer, as I said, there are 3 opportunities. I would prefer not to schedule a 4th one, because sometimes it happens that the first one is June 6, the second is June 20, and the third is July 20. And some students contact me and say, I would like to give the exam on July 1st. I prefer not, because otherwise you understand that it becomes a mess, and also it is not really productive, because in order to make sure that I am coherent with the examination and with the assessment, it's not really the best solution to make the exam one by one in different days. It's much better for me if I see, ideally, for me to ensure the most of the coherence, ideally the best solution would be all the students together in one day. Because in this case, you have a much, also in a statistical sense, you have a much better assessment. Because everyone takes the same quiz, everyone takes more or less the same questions, and while, if you make different sessions, there is less coherence. Now, about the evaluation, as I said, there is a mark for the oral, for the quiz, and a final mark, which is resulting from quiz plus oral. If you don't take the quiz, there is only a final mark, but the essence is more or less the same, which means that you have to demonstrate that you have a good preparation on the topic, either through the quiz or through oral questions, because the questions that I ask you at the oral part are more or less the same than the quiz. You have to demonstrate a good preparation plus a good ability to present. So if you really answer all the questions correctly and you demonstrate a very good ability to present, you get 30. And if you also demonstrate something more than the norm, you get the laude. The laude, usually I give the laude to about 5–8% of the students, and usually the laude is reserved to something really that I think, oh, something that surprises me. And remember, when you are in front of a teacher, when you are in front of an evaluator, whatever it is, it may be for a sporting activity, it may be for finding a job, you get the most from this opportunity when you are able to generate a surprise in the person, like, never seen something like this. Okay, this is really, if you look at the Olympic Games and you look at whatever competition and you say, oh, this is incredible. Okay, this is what allows you to get the best. Okay, and the same in an exam. So I see many of you, several students. Sometimes it happens that I say, oh, this person is something exceptional, and then I give the laude. So how to get this feeling? It is very subjective. It depends a little bit on the evaluator, but mostly depends on you. It is a bit subjective. Of course, you have to use your attitudes, and you have to use at best your best attitudes. Like if you are really passionate about what you're studying, then it may be that you surprise the evaluator by studying something more. Like I say something that from you that I didn't teach. And so I think, oh, this person looked besides what I taught. And this is maybe an element of surprise, but not the only one. Or maybe some behavior in your presentation. Of course, you have to avoid too low profile and too high profile. You don't have to be pretentious. If you look pretentious, usually it doesn't pay back in any evaluation. if you look too much self-confident, usually doesn't pay back. On the other hand, if you look, you have to look self-confident, because this is something that is required. So you have to find a good compromise. And this is the loud, okay? And but if you demonstrate a good preparation and you don't present well, this is not allowed. This is not allowed. It's probably not even a 30. It's maybe 28. Let's suppose that you answer to everything. You know perfectly everything, but your presentation is not the best. Then maybe that it's 29 or 28. Okay, keep it in mind. Presentation is important. And you may ask me, how can I improve this? There are several possible solutions. I can tell you that, first of all, look at the person that speak. Look at how politicians speak. Look at your preferred teacher, how they speak, and try to emulate them. And or another possibility is when you study, try to repeat with loud voice, if you are allowed to do that, or ask your roommate to listen to you. This is extremely efficient, and you don't need to make this for all the exams. It may be just once in a while, and then you acquire the required skills and self-confidence. You don't need to make anything exceptional. Just try to look at people whom you like, how they speak, and try to emulate them. Okay, and let me see. Okay, contact details I already gave them. And one last thing about clarifications, because sometimes it doesn't happen frequently, because usually the web pages are very detailed, and I try to be very clear. But sometimes it may happen that you need to speak with me, maybe through Teams or through in virtual mode or physically. Just contact me by email. I prefer not to schedule a fixed day of the week with a fixed timing, because then it's a problem for me to make sure. It's a problem for me to make available all the weeks at the same day at the same time. But I promise that if you contact me by email, within a couple of days at most, I will be able to dedicate to you some time. Let me just make a rapid check, and then I think we can make the break. But let me make a rapid check if I forgot something. No, I just want to, before making the break, I want to give you an anticipation what we are studying about in this subject, in this course. It is called Sustainable Design of Water Resource Systems. And this course was called in the past Advanced Hydrology. And then it became Advanced Hydrology and Water Resources Management. And then I pushed for Sustainable Design of Water Resource Systems, which was a name that was hard to get approved by the university, because it was considered not enough clear and too much advanced into sustainability. It was like 5 years ago, and the sustainability was not so topical as it is today. Next year, it is changing the name in Climate Change Adaptation. So just to give you an idea of the shift: Advanced Hydrology and Water Resources Management, Sustainable Design of Water Resource Systems, Climate Change Adaptation. This reflects the shift in education that took place during the past 10 years. Like from very technical teaching to, or let's say, very theoretical teaching, advanced hydrology, theoretical plus technical, advanced hydrology and water resources management, sustainability from a scientific and technical point of view, sustainable design of water resource systems. Sustainability means climate change, and then climate change adaptation. Climate change adaptation implicitly of water resource systems. So this is a course focusing on water and water resources, not water-related hazards, no, sorry, not floods, not really droughts. It is a course focusing on how we can adapt water resource systems to make them able to cope with sustainability. And this is why then the final name is climate change adaptation of water resource systems. How to adapt, not how to make, how to adapt, because we have water resources systems. We cannot just cancel them and rebuild them. We have to adapt them to what? To climate change for the sake of sustainability. This is what we are discussing. And it is technical because actually we have to deal with water supply system, water irrigation, irrigation systems. It is technical, and then we have to study solutions. But the perspective will be more scientific than technical. There will be some technical parts because we are engineers. On the other hand, it will be scientific. Why? Because climate change adaptation is an open issue in science, in research, and sustainability is an open issue. When you talk about technical solutions, we all perceive the need for being sustainable. We all perceive the need for addressing climate change. But when it comes to the question, how, what should I do? There are several different interpretations. And when you come to the question, how can I manage a water supply system to cope with the climate change and to make it sustainable in front of climate change? It's an open question. There are some solutions, like close the tap when you brush your teeth, but actually the big picture is still lacking. And keep in mind that solutions depend on the context. In some contexts, it's useless to close the tap, because in some contexts, it's not the problem of saving volumes of waters. It's a different problem. And therefore, we need also to integrate the global challenge with the local context. And this is the task of engineering. Engineering should manage the connection between research and application, between global challenge and local challenge. This is the task of engineering, which is essential. It is really essential. And so we will focus on modern techniques for estimating design variables. The engineer needs design variables. How can I estimate that? This is what we will do, and it is a broad topic, so we will need to be focused. What I hope to give you is a method which allows you to expand. Remember that at the university you cannot learn everything. You learn only a very tiny part of what you will need, and what you will need is only a tiny part of what is our knowledge. So the university, it's important that you get a method. So when you get your chief in the future that tells you, I need to design a dam, even if you didn't study how to design a dam, you know how to get to it. Okay, let's make a 15 minutes break. Just one important thing. I'm not stopping the recording. I'm just stopping the video and the audio, because otherwise I forget to restart it. So you will get in my videos 15 minutes break, okay? And just you will have to advance when you get to it, okay? Good, thank you very much. See you in 15 minutes. Okay, so let's start with the lectures. And I go back just a second on the list. The list of the lectures, and let's click on the first one, which is a premise. This is something that it's conceived to be an introduction, just to clarify what is the teaching method that I think to adopt during my lectures. This is not something that you have to study, it's just for your information. I'm browsing very quickly. There are two concepts that I would like to deliver with this premise. The first is rather a list of what are called the 21st century skills. This is a picture that is taken by a link from Wikipedia, which you can find here. And here you see this picture. These are the skills that has been classified as instrumental for a successful career, meaning a successful attempt to deliver a contribution to the development of society in the 21st century. This is what we have to dream to deliver without being too ambitious. We have to, in a way, dream of giving a successful contribution to the development of society in this period. This period is a period that, it's not particularly challenging, but it is a period that is characterized by a very rapid evolution of technology, evolution of culture, evolution of globalization, which is a very good thing. On the other hand, given that it's a period of change, because this is the key word that I would use, if one asked me, what is your feeling to define the current period of history, I would summarize with one word. If I had to summarize with one word, the word would be change. So it's a period that is changing for many perspectives. And this makes it challenging. I don't think that this period is proposing changes that were never experienced in the past. If you look at other changes that happened in the history, there were periods where humanity underwent very important changes. There were inventions that changed the society probably more than internet did, more than the web did. On the other hand, there is the feeling that the pace, the speed with which we are experiencing change today is unprecedented. And this is probably true. Because the globalization, the increasing availability of technology, indeed makes this pace of change unprecedented. And therefore, we need to acquire flexibility, ability to change. Keep in mind that, in general, change is concerning. If you look at our feelings and the feelings of our parents, our grandparents, they were concerned by change. And change is always concerning because basically we try to get used to everyday challenges. And when we have a change, we have to adapt. And this requires an effort, and not everybody is able to. And this is why there was this idea of trying to write down the skills that are required to cope with change. And I just leave to you to read this. But try to give importance to this, because I think that what you can read there is extremely useful in order to get an input on how to study, what are the things that you really need to learn. So if you look creativity, innovation, creativity, when I talk about surprising an evaluator, this is part of creativity. And the communication, collaboration. Keep in mind that today it's no more the time where people work individually. It's no more the time where researchers study within one room alone. Now it's the time of cooperation, of communication, of getting data from the web, studying on the web. But studying on the web requires your capability to make a selection, and therefore information literacy, media literacy, ICT literacy. Literacy means culture, okay, means knowledge, and the career and life, flexibility, or initiative and self-direction, productivity, accountability. And just have a look and reflect on these. This is not a matter for the exam. And this is the first, let me call it, concept that I want to deliver. So try to before starting studying, try to understand what you need, what is useful that you get from your study. Okay, and as I said, it's not just passing the exam. Of course, passing is important, but not just that. Second thing that I wanted to deliver to you is this figure here. Let me just isolate it. This is done by me, and basically, what is this? It's a sketch of a kind of bottom-up approach that I would like to adopt in teaching. And let's try to revert the direction of these small arrows. Okay, let's revert them and let's ignore this big arrow. Let's just focus on the small arrows and revert them. What do you obtain? You obtain the classical approach to teaching. In the past, we were used to study a theory. From the theory, we could get models in engineering when we needed them. Models usually are needed for making predictions, for estimating design variables. And then we need data for the models. And then from the models, we get the design variables precisely. And then from the design variables, the solutions. This is the classical approach. This approach, I think it needs to be a little bit reverted. Let's today, we need flexibility, we need solution to cope with change. Let's keep the focus on solutions. And from the solutions, let's adopt an engineering problem, an engineering approach. And the approach of engineering is to think at the solutions, to get an idea of the solutions, and then from the solution, the design variables, the models and the theory. In this way, I think, especially in a what we call second cycle, in a master degree program, we call it second cycle in Italy. In a master degree program, I think in engineering, it's particularly important that we just focus on the theory that is needed. This is not a bachelor. In the bachelor, it may have a meaning to expand our theoretical knowledge and to put it in our brain. And maybe that we don't use it, but still it is useful. In a master, I think it is important that the theory is really focused to what we need. And this is the approach that I would like to take, to start from what we need in water resources management to make them sustainable. And I'm not sure I will be successful. There are some lectures where I will start from the theory, but I will try to always keep in mind what we need, the solution. And this is another approach that I suggest to you without discarding the value of theory. I mean, it is very important that we know the basics of mathematics, we know what is an integral, a derivative, but actually, I think it is also important that at this stage of our education, we focus on what we need, on the solution. And this is the second concept that this lecture wants to deliver. Let me just have a look at the chat because I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything, but I recommend students who are attending remotely, if you have any question, please step in. If there is, no problem. And also, I appreciate if you step in. Okay, let's go back now and go to the second link. The second link is a second introduction. This is not very technical, what I am explaining, but I just want to focus on sustainability and sustainable development to clarify the concept, because in a few words, everyone knows what is sustainability, in a few words. But if we had, let me say, everyone has an idea of what it means. But if you got the question, like, how would you define sustainability, then I think that some of you may be in trouble. And if I ask the question in a more detailed manner, how would you define sustainability in water resources management? Then I think that probably we are missing some historical background. And so let me just give you an introduction. And the introduction is just related. Don't look at the screen now, okay? Just look at me, and I just wanted to focus on the pictures. What is this? This is a picture that is used by Wikipedia in the article dedicated to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took place at the end of the at the end of 1800, around 1880, and I think it was the end of the 19th century. And the Industrial Revolution suddenly, by benefiting from steam power, originated a revolution of the production, of the industrial production. It was the first time. And the Industrial Revolution then went on in the 20th century, and in a very impressive manner. It was really something beneficial, because it allowed to improve the quality of the social life. It allowed to set the basis for introducing the welfare strategies. Not at the beginning. At the beginning, the Industrial Revolution also implied some overloading for workers, and implied also some social disparity. But in the long term, it really set the basis for increasing the gross domestic product with a rate that was really not imaginable. And you may think that the gross domestic product in some countries really quintupled from after the Second World War to today. And it is impressive what happened. And if you think at the inventions that came in the 20th century, starting from electricity, and then the TV, and then the personal computers, what happened really in one century, thanks to our capability to benefit from energy and through the Industrial Revolution at the beginning, is really something that probably is unprecedented in a so short time. And what implied the Industrial Revolution? It implied the concentration of people in the cities, around the industrial poles, around the industrials concentration of factories. And this created two problems that were really emerged very quickly. The first was air pollution. Air pollution due to the fact that the Industrial Revolution implied the use of coal in order to produce steam power. So there was really a massive air pollution that also was originated by the fact that people were concentrating into the cities more than in the past. And a second problem was that this very high concentration of people in the cities originated a concentration of wastes and therefore water pollution. So already at the beginning of the 20th century, in the United States, in the more developed countries, the problem of air pollution and water pollution really emerged with dramatic urgence. And air pollution implied health problems, significant health problems. And you know that some forms of cancer also were stimulated by the fact that the industrial production implied the exposure of people to some kind of contaminants, both in the air and both for direct contact with some cancer agents. So it clearly emerged the fact that the Industrial Revolution had a drawback. And this drawback was originated at the beginning only by what I call the air pollution and water pollution. And it was experienced like a local problem. Air pollution and water pollution were local problems. And therefore people started devising solutions for resolving them. And actually several progresses were made. And in the United States, the quality of the rivers improved a lot in the past 50 years, and also in Italy. In Italy also, if you look at the pollution of the Po River, which is the longest river in Italy, and the pollution of other water courses, it reached a peak around 1960-70. In the United States was around 1940, 1930, 1940. In Italy, it was the peak of pollution was 1960, 70, 80. And then the quality of water improved because we started wastewater treatment in all the cities. Milan had his wastewater system ready to operation, I think, no more than 20 years ago. And this clearly solved the local problem. As I said, at the beginning, it was a local problem given by concentration of people. Then there was another problem, which was the increase of water demands for several reasons. Hydropower production, for instance, irrigation. Remember, water, food, and energy are strictly related. Most of the water that is used by humans is for irrigation, 70%. The fresh water use, consumption, is 70% dedicated to irrigation, which means water for food. This is a global average. In Italy, it's precisely the same level, 70%. I would say that this is more or less precisely the same level in the temperate belt of the world. 70% is a good estimate. And keep in mind that about half of it is lost because of leakages, infiltration, not efficient irrigation. So about half of it is lost. But again, 70% is irrigation. And the remaining 30% is about 22% industrial use, 8% civil use. So this is more or less the picture that you get. So again, water, food, energy, they are related. And again, hydropower production, irrigation, and water for civil use and industrial production. So the water demands increased a lot, and as a consequence, water withdrawal increased. And this is another problem that the Industrial Revolution, the civilization, caused. Shortage of water. Okay. Third problem, climate change. Climate change is something that is more subtle with respect to pollution. Pollution is local. You don't have a spreading of pollutants in the whole of the atmosphere. Or let's say that the pollutants that are dangerous for our health, they don't spread, they don't have the capacity and the possibility to travel a lot. So if you go out of the cities about 5 kilometers, you already have the concentration of PM10, which are the very small particles that are very dangerous for our health. It goes down very quickly. It's like a bubble around the cities. And this is the same for many pollutants. But for the CO2 emissions, or let's say for the greenhouse gases emission, which is something more than CO2, and this instead they can expand in the atmosphere, and therefore the increase of concentration of greenhouse gases caused, as you know, because everybody knows that, the global warming and climate change. Climate change is relatively recent, more recent than water shortage. Water shortage, the awareness that water was not infinite came about in the 60s in most countries, a little bit later in some parts of Europe, 70s. Let's say end of 60s, past century, so 1968 is the date of the first European Water Charter, which tried to introduce saving concepts in water resources management. So water shortage became an awareness about around 60s, 70s. Climate change is something that started in the early 90s. And before that, there was a concern related to climate change for opposite reasons, global cooling. In the 70s, there was a global concern about global cooling because the period from 1950 to 1970 was characterized by a decrease of the global temperature. But then, as you know, and we will see some graph, the global temperature started to increase, and it dramatically increased in the past 30 years, dramatically. Let's say it increased substantially. These two concerns are different. Water shortage is still a global concern. So it is something that, for some reasons that are not justified, in my opinion, is not concerning, is not considered a global concern. And this is, in my view, unjustified, because water shortage actually is a problem in many countries. So I think it should be classified as a global concern. But given that it's something that looks more under control, it is not as concerning as climate change. Climate change is considered to be more widespread. It's considered to be not under our control, and therefore is getting much more attention. But actually, if we look at the impact, at the damage that is causing water shortage, actually already now, it's at present much more impactful with respect to climate change. But still, as I said, it's considered a local problem, and it's considered a problem that has a potential solution, which is desalination. Desalination, if efficient, would solve any water problem. Actually, it's not doable extensively because it requires too much energy. And also, we need to displace the wastes from desalination. These are the two problems which makes desalination still not really doable at the global level. But in the future, probably it will be. When we will have more energy available, maybe for nuclear fusion or something not dangerous, with more energy to desalinate and energy to treat the wastes, it will become probably feasible. And I think it will not require a very long time. So this may be the reason why it's not so concerning water shortage, because we see the solution possible. For climate change, we don't have a clear solution possible. So basically, what happened in the 60s, 70s, when the concern related to water became true, people understood a basic concept. Water is not an infinite good. And you may think that this is a naive discovery. Like, it's clear, no? You may think it's clear that water is not an infinite good. But if you go back at that time, it was not so naive, because 50 years ago, water was considered like air, something infinite. You wouldn't think of paying for the air that you breathe. At that time, people wouldn't think of paying for the water that they drank. It was considered to be something available, infinitely available. And people discovered the first water declarations started by saying water is not an infinite good. Keep in mind that this is a relevant societal implication, because it implies, more or less, that you have to pay for water. We have to pay for water. Actually, today we are paying for water. When we open the tap, there is somebody paying the bill. And when we drink water from a bottle, we pay for it. And keep in mind that this is something that is still very debated. Actually, how it works in most of the countries, and also in Italy, is that we pay for water, but the government is controlling the fare. But if you think of a situation where water goes into the market, into the competitive market, and if you think of a situation where water is scarce, this is extremely concerning. Think of a situation where you open the tap, you don't have water, but if you pay, you get it. This would cause social disparity. This would cause probably wars, social tension, and then wars. And this is something that emerged only 50 years ago. Now it is something that we give for acquired, for established. We have to pay water, but we have to pay the right price for it. We have to make sure that everyone have access to it. But this principle actually were the backbone of the first water declarations. And the first one, so now I'm talking about water, not climate change. So let's talk about it, okay? Because the first one, the first water declaration was, this page tells much more of what I'm saying, okay? So it's also talking about the problem given by dams, because at the beginning, of course, people needed water, and therefore they built dams. They needed energy, they built dams, but the dams create other problems. So just have a look at this. It's this page, let's say that it doesn't include questions for the exam, but I suggest that you read it, because it gives to you the perspective. And remember, to understand the present, you have to understand the past first. And you don't have to go back to the Romans. But the past, I think, 100 years, I'm starting from the Industrial Revolution with this page, I think it is extremely important. And keep in mind also to understand climate change, and this is something that even the climate scientists sometimes don't do. To understand climate change, you have to first study the climate of the past. Some climate scientists don't do that. Not all of them. Most of them do. But I mean, studying the past is extremely important. So as I said, the first water declaration was the European Water Charter. Just 1 second is a bit slow. And that was issued in 1968. And I think it is interesting to see, provided I can upload it. I hope I still have the connection. Yes, okay. Let me just see what is this. It's a Wikipedia. No. Maybe that this link is, okay, here it is. No. Okay, this is an example of broken, it's arrived. Okay, here it is, sorry. So the European Water Charter, was issued in 1968. And let's see at what they say, not everything. Let me just expand it. Not too much. First principle, there is no life without water. It is a treasure indispensable to all human activity. Very trivial, but this is 54 years ago. And they wanted to start with this. So you understand that the awareness of the importance of water is relatively recent. And this is the first declaration on water of the humanity. Of course, in the past, people were concerned. Napoleon did many aqueducts, water supply systems, but these trivial principles were established only 50 years ago. So this gives to you also the feeling of the really actual nature of this problem. Principle 2, fresh water resources are not inexhaustible. What I said, it's not infinite, okay? Principle 3, to pollute water is harm to man and other living creatures. What does this mean? It means that in the past, it was not considered a problem if you released your wastes into a river. And in fact, several houses, even today in Italy, in a country that is, I mean, you may classify as a country that has worked on that, but still there are many houses releasing directly the wastes into some surface waters. And there were no, 54 years ago, there was no treatment for in any of the Italian cities, no treatment, just release the water into the rivers. You understand that the pollution. And keep in mind, the river is capable of the river, or let's say water bodies, are capable of self-recovering, but provided the concentration of contaminants is limited. If you increase the concentration of contaminants in the wastes, you get to a tipping point where you have, you basically get to anoxic conditions. It means no more oxygen in the water, and this is a tipping point. And then to go back, it's really a problem. Okay, when you deplete the oxygen reserve of a water body, then it's gone. There is no microbial activity, no self-recovering. Principle 4, the quality of water must be maintained. Just to give you an idea of the young concept we are talking about, let's not look into the chart anymore. I just want to say that this is the first example, and there is one thing. The chart is resumed here. One thing which is extremely interesting. There is a principle that says water resources must be assessed. Actually, today, we are not done with this. So one part of my lectures will be water resources assessment, because we are not done. If you ask to a local manager in any civilized or whatever you call it country, and ask what is the amount of water that you can safely take from that river, there is no answer in most of the cases. And it becomes even more complicated with wells, because groundwater is really difficult to assess. And this is something that I'm trying to explain to the local administrators. They want to know how much water they can take from the underground. And I'm saying there is no scientific support to answer to your question. They can't believe it. They say, how is this possible that you don't know? You university professor, you don't know how much water is beneath our feet. And I keep saying, not possible, sorry. You can only try. You can try to get it, and if the wells get exhausted, you're done. You know how much water you could get from it. But if you want to make a prediction, it's not possible. And this is something that people don't understand, because now we live in an era where we are given the feeling that we can control everything. Nature cannot be controlled. We have to just accept it. We can mitigate some effects. We can get prepared to adverse consequences. But there are some adverse consequences that we cannot predict. And this is extremely, it's extremely important that we keep this concept. There is technology, there is internet, there is everything. So people are convinced that we can control everything. I think the pandemic was a clear demonstration that we cannot control everything. We can get prepared we can prepare a B plan, a C plan. Actually, for the pandemics, we didn't have any B plan. now probably we have. In water resources management, we have some B plans, but the C plan, probably we don't have it. And in any case, this is something that I really wanted to emphasize. And this European chart started, to give you an example, in Italy in 1976, a law was issued that obliged the local administrations to monitor the water bodies, the pollution of water bodies, to monitor it. The most important water bodies, the administration got the compulsory prescription of monitoring the quality. And they started around 1981, 82. If you look for water quality data in Italian rivers, you go back to 81, 82, because the law was issued in 1976, and then there is some delay for the implementation, and that's it. But before than that, we didn't have any idea of the pollution. I want to tell you a story. I met once a very old man. He was born in 1898, and I met him, he was 92. And he was living close by the Po River. And so I had the opportunity to, because it was my civil service, in a rest house, and I had the opportunity to discuss with the person who was very, very, very lucid. And he told me two things that impressed me. The first one was that his first job was getting woods from the Po River. So when he was 20, he went over the Po River with a small boat to grab chunks of wood transported by the river to sell them for use to make fires. And he said that he was used to spend the whole day over the Po River. And I asked him, but did you take bottles? And because I was not sure that in 1920 they had bottles to drink water. And he said, no, I just drank the water of the Po River. And he said, of course, I tried to go where the flow was quicker, but it was no problem. You couldn't drink it in 1920. Okay, in 1950, I think in 1980, if you swam in the Po River, probably you would be killed. Okay, today is a much better situation, but still you cannot swim into it. And of course, not to speak about drinking. And the second thing was, I asked him, where did you go? What was the farthest place, the farthest, I don't know how to say in English, the most far place where you traveled to? And he told me the region of Friuli in Italy to fight during the First World War. And it was the Battaglia di Caporetto, who is in Italy knows what I mean. And the second place, and this was the farthest place because it was about like 200 kilometers. And he told me that after the end of the war, when the military, the army was completely lost, they got lost from any indication, he went back to his home by feet. And then he crossed the Po River by swimming because there were no bridges during the war. Very interesting. And the second thing he said, I went to a place where they were building a dam in 1925, which was 50 kilometers away. And when he got there, they told him that the dam was not going to be built because they decided not to build it. And he went by bike. And it was interesting because basically he told me that his most striking experiences were related to water, building a dam and getting woods from the Po River. So to give you the feeling of how much the situation changed in just 100 years, because 1920 was 100 years ago. And don't think that 100 years is a long time, because it's a lifespan. One single person can live 100 years. Okay, and another thing, water knows no frontiers. Why this? Because water is the reason of many wars. International rivers that draw a boundary, are the reason of many wars. Think about the Jordan River, think of the Nile River. The Nile River is a decennial reason of conflict. If you're interested, just look on Wikipedia, Millennium Dam. the dam that is being built in Ethiopia for very good motivations, but it's upstream, and the consequences on Sudan, Egypt, the impact. The Aswan Dam is downstream, so you understand. Who is the owner of water? Ethiopia or Egypt? Ethiopia is getting the rainfall, feeding the Nile River, but Egypt is Sudan, they have the Nile River there. So if upstream, a different country decides to pollute the water or take the water, worse. And then after this, there were several conferences, international conferences, to discuss water issues. And this webpage gives to you an overview, an history. I just want to before I finish today, just to draw your attention on two conferences. Just 1 second, because I can't find it. In 1992, I'm not sure if there was a conference in okay, here it is. Okay, fine, I found it. United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED. It's Rio de Janeiro, Rio 92. And then after Rio 92, it is also known as the Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, the Rio Summit, the Rio Conference. It was repeated in 2002 and in 2012. So there is, after the Rio Conference, there was the Rio +10 and the Rio +20. And it was attended by more than 100 heads of states, and it marked a significant step forward in terms of widespread political attention to environment. But this was just 30 years ago. So, you know, the concept is new. So, these conferences led to a definition of what is called sustainable development. And let me just see the indication, the definition. Just 1 second, here it is. One second, because I need, okay. Here it is, so just 1 second. Okay. So, let me just summarize what is a definition of sustainable development. We don't have a unique definition. I just want to start from an essential premise. Up to 1992, up to the 90s of the past century, the two terms, sustainability and development, were considered antithetic. So development is necessary. Development was considered to be antithetic to sustainable. So it was clear that development was caused sustainability concerns. And the idea was then to try to identify solutions to reconcile them. And the term sustainable development was created, was proposed. I think it was a very interesting idea, because from the consideration that the two terms were antithetic, they came to the idea of studying solutions to make them compatible. Again, I think it was a genial idea. Now it is like a buzzword, and indeed we have to move forward. because actually, I don't think humanity reached so far a satisfactory achievement in making development sustainable. So we need to move forward, but still the idea is indeed something that is extremely interesting. Here I am proposing different definitions, but I think the most accepted one is the second one here, which was proposed by the Forum for the Future. Sustainable development is a dynamic process which enables people to realize their potential and improve their quality of life in ways which simultaneously protect and enhance the Earth life support systems. And there are some definitions that extend this to ensuring enough resources for future generations. So we have to reach the goal of enhancing our current quality of life while preserving enough resources for the future generations. And this is really an ambitious target. Engineering plays a fundamental role here. And this is something that we really need innovation to achieve. And basically, we have these conferences identified 3 pillars of sustainability: economy, society, and environment. So basically, we have to protect, we have to promote the level of societal development, which means taking care of the economy, and means also taking care of the environment, which is basically surrounding the whole system, the whole societal economic system. I will take some time to close this discussion because now it's already becoming a little bit too late on Thursday. So I will conclude this lecture on Thursday. And again, I'm not really, this is not a subject for the exam, but I suggest that to this lecture you take a look because I think it's important that you get an historical perspective of it and a clear definition of what we aim to achieve. Any question? Okay. Thank you in particular to the students who attended remotely. And just one last thing which I forgot to say about the exam. You can, in the past, you could take it physically or remotely. You know that now the university requires that exams are taken in physical presence unless you are exempted. It is specified in the webpage of the course, and you have the max of cooperation from my side. If you are exempted, please follow the procedures and you will take the exam remotely. If you have some problems, meaning that in getting your exemption recognized, you can speak with me. Okay? Good. Thank you.